For me, I think the biggest surprise was really how inadequate their level and ability to think and reason logically was. Uh, for a lot of them, they were confronted with this linear narrative from a very charismatic preacher, and they didn't have the skills to really challenge that narrative, even when parts of it didn't really make too much sense. We've got to broaden our curriculum. We've got to be able to teach children how to be imaginative thinkers. And we've also got to teach religion, both Christianity and Islam, in a lot better than we have been doing. A lot of kids just memorize the Quran. We've got to understand the meaning of what they're memorizing, and we've got to do a lot better in terms of tolerance for other faiths. So when somebody comes and says to you, well, actually my religion says that you should hate somebody from another religion, you can actually counter that.
Your program also has a counter-radicalization side to it, and I understand you have, found institutions and places where people are preaching radical thoughts and radicalizing children who are under their care.
Radicalization goes on in many communities, in mosques, in schools. Some of it is inadvertent. Some of the preachers do not think that what they're doing is radicalizing young people. They have extreme beliefs which they absolutely believe to be true Islam. So even preachers need to understand the religious text a lot better. My feeling is that religion should never be taught in isolation, that when you study religion as a preacher, you should also study not just your religion but other faiths, and you should also study religion in conjunction with literature, with philosophy, with science in some respects, so that you have a much broader view.
One of the things people find the most shocking is the reports of young girls, teenage girls, being used as suicide bombers. From the people you've spoken to that have come out and are now part of the program, what have you learned about the way that those girls are used and radicalized and how they end up being suicide bombers?
Well, one thing that we are learning is that for most of those girls, if not all, they did not go into this voluntarily. They were forced to join the group, and some were just taken into the group. They never did join the group, and actually they were taken by people that they trusted, fathers, brothers, uncles, and a lot of them had very short indoctrination periods where they were convinced that if they strapped themselves up and blew themselves up, that they would have a straight path to heaven. And they were also not offered a choice, because they were also told that if you don't do this, we will kill you. So either way, they were really put into a corner. So that's what we're finding, and I think they use girls that are very young because they are more easily manipulated and controlled.
And have you heard of drugs being used sometimes to ensure that people carry out their instructions, become more malleable, whether girls or boys or men or women?
Sure, we have heard a lot of stories. They have used girls as young as 10, and even some of the young boys, 13, 14. I think if you can imagine what a typical 13-year-old is like, I mean, I think there would be very few 13-year-olds that would willingly allow themselves to be strapped full of explosives and have the courage to walk into a public place and detonate. They would be a great level of fear. So I'm sure that they do drug them to keep them calm and to be able to control them.